Hey, welcome back. It's been a little longer than usual since we've done a movie, and that's for a few reasons. First of all, last time we did Crescendo, and when we did Crescendo, I said that the next Alan Gibson movie was Goodbye Gemini. So I watched Goodbye Gemini soon after I watched Crescendo, and we have a couple issues with it, and one of those things is that I don't really consider it to be a horror movie. Nothing even violent happens for the first hour, and it's not scary, and there's no traditional horror elements. The only thing that happens is like a pair of twins end up killing one person, and it's like a little bit weird. So I'm not doing a full movie on that, which is unexpected, and then I was away on a trip, so I didn't get home to watch another one until now. So we're actually going to be talking about House of Dark Shadows. Now, House of Dark Shadows, in contrast to Goodbye Gemini, is very traditional horror film. You can hear the score in the background, probably one of the best scores of the entire year as far as horror is concerned. It's kind of cool because I grew up playing Castlevania, and Castlevania directly ripped off part of this score, or at least the same style. That cello you hear there, the same notes are used in some Castlevania games, so that's pretty cool. What I didn't realize when I started watching House of Dark Shadows is that it's not really just a movie. It throws you right into the middle of the plot, which I found strange, but I was glad it wasn't boring. We have vampires coming out of coffins and biting people right at the beginning of the movie, and it barely lets up at all for the whole movie. So this vibe is different than a typical 1970 horror movie, but I was also kind of confused because none of the characters were introduced whatsoever. So I paused it and I looked it up, and I realized that this movie is actually a movie that is an expansion of a TV show. The TV show was Dark Shadows. That's like a DVD cover of Dark Shadows. Of course, Dark Shadows, being a TV show, didn't have a promo poster. So Dark Shadows was on from the late 60s until the early 70s, and it had 1,225 episodes, which is like ridiculous. Okay, that's a lot of episodes. And so it was almost at the end of its run by the time they made the movie House of Dark Shadows. So both Dark Shadows and House of Dark Shadows were created by Dan Curtis. He started his career off by producing an adaptation of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in 1967 TV movie. And after that, he did Dark Shadows next. After Dark Shadows, he did House of Dark Shadows, and then the sequel, Night of Dark Shadows, which we'll talk about when we get to 1971, which is not too far away. Dan Curtis went on to do Trilogy of Terror and a whole bunch of other movies. He did Burnt Offerings and a whole bunch more in the 70s and beyond. So we're going to hear more about Dan Curtis later. So let's talk about this film, which I'm not going to rate because I don't think it would be fair to rate this film if you haven't seen the show, which I have not, and I definitely don't have time to go watch 1,225 episodes of a TV show right now. So, we will talk about it as best we can. It starts off right with a vampire being unleashed from a coffin in the basement of a home in Maine. Collinswood, Maine, and the last name of the family that lives in this house is Collins, and I'm not sure if you can see it. Let's see if we can zoom in here. If we look at the top of this poster, it talks about Barnabas Collins. Okay, Barnabas Collins is this vampire right here. Okay, Barnabas Collins, he actually shows up a few times. Oops. This is also Barnabas Collins here, and that's also him in the coffin there. So he's on the poster 3 times. He's from the TV show. He comes in here, he's looking for a bride, okay? So he's looking for a bride, and he's going through this group of people. He changes this girl into a bride, but then people kind of figure out what's going on, and they can give her a stake to the heart, as you can see right on the poster. Then she goes for this other bride who's up here, tries to change her as well. It's relatively simple in plot. There's a lot of vampire action. There's a lot of biting of necks, staking. He actually, one thing I really like about it is that when he bites someone in the neck, you not only get the 2-prong bite, but also the entire bottom, tooth line, which I haven't really seen that before, so that was pretty interesting. The best part of the story here is that another woman in this movie, let's see, is she on there? She's not even on there, which I'm surprised. An older woman falls in love with Barnabas and is a scientist and creates a cure for vampirism. And he starts giving him these treatments, and he's very excited about them, except, guess what? He wants this young girl as a bride, not this older lady. So after a few treatments, he's able to walk in the sunlight, which was very cool. And after that, he wanted more treatments quickly. She said it's going to take 3 days to give you the full rest of the treatments, and he didn't want to wait that long. She found out it's because he's trying to marry this young girl, and she gets jealous and she screws it up. So she does something to him, and it turns him into this old drooping face vampire, and he looks like a total monster for a chunk of the movie. That's the best part of the whole thing. She betrays him, and he kills her. And it's funny because the people that he doesn't want to turn into a vampire, he strangles them. So there's a lot of strangling in this movie too. So he strangles her to death, doesn't bite her because he's not interested in ever seeing her again. And then he has to go on being a vampire. And I'm not going to tell you the conclusion of the movie because it was pretty good. I also don't know how much of it is retold in the TV show or what, and there's also a sequel, so we'll get into the sequel soon. I looked up that the TV show apparently not only has vampires, but also werewolves, ghosts, zombies, man-made monsters, time travel, and a parallel universe. All sorts of supernatural stuff going on in the show. It seems very interesting to me. If I ever really get stuck and want to watch 1,200 episodes of something, I'll probably check it out. So no official rating on this one. It was a fun one. I didn't totally know exactly what was going on, and I think it was because I haven't watched the show at all. So that's that. Oh, I also wanted to mention that this is the only American mainstream Hollywood theatrical movie that we have touched on in all of 1970 so far. So the budget for this was bigger. It was given a larger budget based off the success of the TV show. We've had a few other movies that would be considered mainstream put out by MGM in 1970, but they were coming from other countries. So we had one Italian movie and one or two English movies that came out through a mainstream film distributor. But this is the first one of 1970 that we've discussed, and I think one of only two that maybe, actually, I think it's the only one that got Hollywood production value put into it. I think it's the only one. If I'm wrong, I'll correct myself later. But as I've looked ahead, there are only 9 films left that I'm going to do for 1970, and the rest of the films that exist are not available to watch. That's because they're very, very obscure. So we got 9 more that are accessible. And as you know, I've done plenty that are quite obscure already, but a lot of those were just free on YouTube. So, we got 9 left. I'm kind of excited because looking ahead into future years, I think the average quality of these films is going to go way up, even 1 year ahead in 1971. So that's it for this one. We'll try and get in another one in less than a week. See ya.